Page 35, the passing parade. This is another march type thing. You're kind of pretending a parade is marching by, you know, okay. And so as they go by, this is what it is. That's why the left hand has this steady pulse. You kind of do it as though you're marching. Right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. Gives you an idea how fast to take it. You're not going to run by on a parade. You're just going to march by, okay. Meanwhile, the right hand is doing a lot of what you did on page 34 with these. Right. However, now we get some melody mixed in with that. It's the second line. Now, you can do finger staccato on these if you want. I'll leave it up to you whether you do that or wrist, I don't know. Because if you're used to doing wrist staccato on the first one, then suddenly changing to finger staccato gets tricky. So if you want to just keep doing wrist staccato throughout, that's fine. I'm sure I won't mind too much. Right hand. Let's just talk about the right hand here. Second line. You see those D's? I recommend a 2 on the first one. And then for the eighth notes, do a 2-1. On those. Same thing on the fourth line down. Last line. Right hand. You're down here at the C. And the next note is a G. Believe it or not, you can count down, I hope, G. You need to memorize that eventually. Just know, 2 ledger lines, and it's right below the second ledger line, it's a G. Because 2 ledger lines below treble clef is an A, 1 ledger line is a C, 2 is an A, and this is right below that, so it's a G. Just memorize it's a G. Then a B flat, and that's what those notes are, no big deal. And then you're dying away. Don't slow down. The parade isn't coming to a stop. The parade keeps going. All you're doing is getting softer. The parade's going off into the distance, okay? Staccato on the last note. Left hand is staccato throughout. Tricky part here would be the second line, last 2 measures. I recommend on those 2 C's you do a 2-1 if you can. It's a bit tricky because of what's happening in the right hand. So if it'll help you to do 1-1, that's fine too. I prefer 2-1. Because the right hand's going up, but the left hand's repeating that note. And that's why it's tricky. Because you want to do the same in both hands. So if the right hand goes up, the left hand wants to go down. And it doesn't do that here. So watch out. Last measure of the second line in the left hand, you have to bring your thumb under. It's a C major scale. Because starting with the third line, for the rest of the piece, you have an 8 VA underneath the left hand. Meaning the left hand plays the rest of the piece an octave lower than written. It's written here, you're going to play it here. So the transition to get you down there are the last 2 measures of the second line. You're getting there. And you're down there. Now, I disagree with the fingering they're giving you there, so watch out. When you know the scales, and you see a scale passage in a piece, you will, more often than not, simply finger that scale passage in the piece like you finger the scale. It's really handy. Doesn't always work out well, but it's really handy. At least when you're sight reading, when you're first getting it, that's your first choice, is to finger it according to the scale. Well, in this case, if I finger the last 2 measures like a C major scale, thumb on the G, 4th finger on the D, and then I'd put the thumb on the C again. That's okay. I can do a 1-4-1-4-1-4 on those 2 notes. I don't have to use 2 and 5. There's nothing magical about them. I can do 1 and 4. You can do 1 and 4 at the beginning if you want. It's just at the beginning with 2 and 5, it accommodates the second line in the first measure. Now it's here. So you're doing that. But your thumb can do both. It's up to you. However, getting back to our original problem of if we're going to use 2 and 5 for the last 3 lines, we want here not the thumb. index. So we have to adjust our fingering on the scale coming down to allow for that. So we're going to go here. And now we're going to put a thumb on the D, not fourth finger, thumb here. And that allows us to have our second finger on the C. So it's not exactly the scale fingering, but that's okay. It happens a lot in music. So I would recommend you might think about that. And if you're going to change the fingering that's there, or even if you don't change it, but you need a reminder of the fingering, take a pencil and write it in. So that's that. Now the 8VA thing is only the left hand. The right hand stays where it's at. It's not moving. Let's try this piece out. Curious, or you're wondering, you're not sure, at the bottom, at the beginning of the last line, you see a dim period, molto. That means diminuendo, molto, which means get softer a whole bunch. And they're reinforcing that with the last two measures where you have a decrescendo line, that arrow, going down to a pianissimo. So we're going from a fortissimo to a pianissimo. And we talked about this on the previous video. You have to plan that out. The first measure of the last line is going to be fortissimo to start, and you're immediately going to start coming down. So the second measure you might be mezzo forte. The next measure you might be piano or mezzo piano going down to piano, so that the last beat is pianissimo, just very soft. Now on a very soft, you're not going to use wrist staccato. You don't have the control. You've got to use finger staccato. So my recommendation here is for the last two measures of this piece, use finger staccato in both hands. Keep your fingers on the keys and just a very slight motion. It's just a very slight flick of the finger to get it that soft. Takes practice, but you can work on that. It's just, so you're changing your technique for how you're doing the staccato based on the dynamics. Okay, that's fine, we do that. How can we make it more complicated? Well, stick around, I'll get there. Common time, 4/4 time, so I'll give us 4 counts. Go ahead and put your hands here. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Two, three, four, off.